My husband convinced me to transfer the house to his name, saying, "It's just for tax purposes, honey." A month later, when he sat me down with a smile on his face to sign the papers and allow him to move in with his new girlfriend, he thought I would cry. But he didn't know the secret I had been keeping, and when I revealed it, his smile disappeared. "It's just a formality," Fernando continued, trying to soften his voice as he noticed my hesitation. "You're always talking about making smart financial decisions. This is the best move for our family." He reached across the table and held my hand, but his touch felt different. Maybe it was the way his fingers no longer fit around mine the way they used to. Or perhaps it was the slight tremor in his voice, barely noticeable. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the documents he had placed in front of me on the granite countertop, my heart pounding. The transfer papers seemed to mock me, their official stamp stark against the white surface. The twins were finally asleep upstairs after a long day, and there I was, facing what felt like an ultimatum from my husband of 4 years. My name is Mariana. I'm 38 years old and a doctor at Houston Methodist Hospital. I bought this beautiful Victorian home in the Heights neighborhood before I even met Fernando, using my residency savings and years of careful planning. Now, standing in the kitchen I had renovated myself, I found myself pressured into giving up my greatest investment. "If you really valued our marriage, you'd see why this is the right decision," Fernando insisted, pushing the papers closer. "You're always exhausted from a hospital. I'm the one holding this family together." His words cut deep, but something in his tone made me pause. There was a sharpness to it that I had never noticed before. I glanced at the baby monitor on the counter, watching our twins, Mateus and Bianca, sleeping peacefully in their cribs. At 2 years old, they were my mirror image, dark curls and olive skin. They were also the reason I worked double shifts at the hospital, making sure they would never lack anything in life. Fernando had never understood that my dedication to my career wasn't about ambition. It was about securing our children's future. "I don't know, Fernando," I murmured, pulling my hand away. "This house, it's my safety. I bought it before we got married." The moment the words left my mouth, something flickered across his face. Was it irritation? Annoyance? Whatever it was, he quickly masked it with a look of feigned concern. That night, as I lay awake in bed, his words kept replaying in my mind. But another voice, quiet but persistent, was warning me that something wasn't right. The next morning, as I got ready for my shift, Fernando's behavior continued to gnaw at me. Lately, he had been distant, spending more time at his marketing firm, glued to his phone. At first, I had brushed it off as work stress, but now, combined with his sudden urgency over the house, my instincts screamed that something was wrong. "I dropped your coat off at the dry cleaners," Fernando said as I rushed around the kitchen, packing the twins' daycare bags and quickly eating a piece of toast. "You can thank me later." His smile seemed forced, and he barely looked up from his phone. Months ago, he would have been helping me with the twins' bags and making sure I ate a proper breakfast before work. As I strapped Mateus and Bianca into their car seats, I watched Fernando closely. There was a spring in his step that hadn't been there in years, and he had started going to the gym again. Small details that, on their own, seemed harmless, but together, they painted a picture I couldn't ignore. At the hospital, between seeing patients, I called my friend Amanda, who specialized in real estate law. "Something doesn't feel right," I whispered, stepping into an empty exam room. "He's pushing hard for this transfer, saying it's for tax reasons, but..." "Tax reasons?" Amanda cut me off, her voice sharp. "Transferring the house solely to his name wouldn't give you any tax benefits. In fact, it would complicate things since you bought it before marriage." My blood ran cold. I had been so busy with work and the kids that I hadn't thought it through. Fernando was counting on that, wasn't he? "Listen to me carefully," Amanda continued, her tone serious. "Don't sign anything. I don't want to scare you, but I've seen this before. When men push for property transfers, they usually have a reason." That afternoon, during a quick break, I did something I had never done before. I checked our phone records. Fernando had been making frequent calls to the same number for months. My hands trembled as I looked it up. A name appeared: Lorena. A quick social media search revealed a young, beautiful woman in her mid-20s, whose check-ins matched Fernando's late nights at work. My stomach churned as I scrolled through her photos, stopping at one from 2 weeks ago. She was at a real estate office, captioned, "Big changes coming. New chapter. Blessed." I shut my office door and took a deep breath. Years of medical training had taught me to trust my instincts when something felt off. And right now, my instincts were telling me I needed to act. That evening, for the first time in months, I left the hospital early. Instead of picking up the twins from daycare, I went to a discreet electronics store Amanda had recommended. The elderly man behind the counter barely reacted when I explained what I needed: a high-quality recording device, small enough to hide in my kitchen. "Protect yourself," he said quietly as he showed me how to use it. "The best evidence comes from their own words." I got home before Fernando, set up the device, and started cooking as if it were any other night. When he walked in, he looked surprised to see me there. "No emergencies at the hospital today?" he asked, casual but watchful. "I wanted to talk more about the house transfer," I said, stirring the pasta sauce. "I've been thinking about what you said." I watched his reflection in the kitchen window as his face lit up with barely concealed excitement. "I knew you'd come around," he said, stepping behind me. "You're making the right choice, Mari. This is what's best for our family." The way he emphasized family made my skin crawl. Over dinner, I let him talk, recording every word as he laid out his elaborate plan. Every lie was precise, calculated, and with growing dread, I realized he had been planning this for months. After putting the twins to bed, I sat in their room, watching them sleep. Bianca clutched her favorite stuffed animal, while Mateus had, as usual, kicked his blanket off. Looking at them, a wave of fierce determination washed over me. Fernando thought he had everything under control, but he was about to learn that a mother will always fight for her children. I sat in my children's room for a long time, watching their innocent faces, feeling an anger boil inside me. Fernando thought he had everything under control, that I was naive enough to fall into his trap without asking questions. He had planned every detail, convinced that I would sign those papers without a second thought, blindly trusting him like always. But he underestimated one thing. I was no longer the woman he had manipulated for years. Now that I knew the truth, I was ready to do whatever it took to protect what was mine. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, the events of the day played over in my mind. Fernando smiling at me with that fake, rehearsed expression, the messages to Lorena, the certainty that he had been planning to get rid of me as soon as he got what he wanted. But he didn't know that I had already made my decision. The next morning, Fernando acted as if everything was normal, making breakfast with his usual fake charm. I watched him in silence, memorizing every detail of his behavior. Now that I knew about his betrayal, everything about him disgusted me. His smug smile, the way he spoke to me like I was a fool, his arrogance in believing he had everything under control. "Are you sure you don't want to sign the papers today?" he asked casually as he sat at the table. "We could just get it over with and stop worrying about all this paperwork." "I'm thinking about it," I replied calmly, keeping my face neutral. "I just want to make sure I'm making the right decision." He smiled, convinced he had already won. But I could see past that smile. He was anxious, impatient. He needed my signature as soon as possible. When I left for the hospital, instead of going straight to work, I took a detour to Amanda's office. I handed her the papers Fernando had given me and told her everything I had discovered. "He thinks he can fool me," I whispered, feeling my anger rise again. "But I'm going to destroy his plan before he gets what he wants." Amanda examined the documents carefully, and when she was done, she let out a heavy sigh. "Mariana, this isn't just a property transfer," she said, looking at me seriously. "If you sign this, he'll have full control over the house. You'll lose all rights. And with a divorce, he could kick you out with nothing." I had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made my blood boil. "So that's his plan," I murmured. "He's calculated every step to leave me with nothing." Amanda nodded. "But you're not going to let that happen?" For the next few days, I played along, keeping up the act so Fernando would continue thinking I was about to give in. While he believed his manipulation was working, I was preparing to crush him. I started gathering all the evidence I could: Lorena's messages, the call logs, the conversations where he pressured me about the house. I documented everything carefully. Every day, I recorded our interactions, waiting for the right moment to strike. And finally, the day arrived. I waited until late at night when the twins were already asleep and asked Fernando to sit with me in the living room. He looked relaxed, confident that he had already won. "I need to talk to you about the house," I said, pretending to hesitate. His eyes lit up with satisfaction. "Of course, love. Have you made your decision?" I looked at him and smiled. But it wasn't a smile of surrender. It was the smile of someone about to destroy their enemy. "Yes, I have. And tonight you're going to make a decision too?" Before he could say anything, I picked up my phone and pressed play. His own voice filled the room, carefully detailing his plan. Every lie, every manipulation. His face turned pale the moment he heard it. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, trying to keep his composure. "Ridiculous?" I let out a cold laugh. "You cheated on me, tried to trick me into giving you my house, and now you're acting like this is some misunderstanding? Do you really think I'm that stupid?" He opened his mouth to speak, but I wasn't done. I threw the call records, the messages to Lorena, and all the proof I had gathered onto the table. "I know everything, Fernando. I know about her. I know what you were planning. I know you thought I'd sign those papers without asking any questions." He stared at me, a mix of anger and panic flashing in his eyes. "If you make a scene, it'll only make things worse for you," he threatened, his voice tight. I laughed again, this time with real amusement. "You don't get it, do you? The game has changed. You lost. And now you have two options. Walk out of this house on your own or wait until I have you thrown out the hard way." He tried to argue, to twist things back in his favor, but I wasn't listening anymore. I picked up my phone again and dialed a number. "Amanda, can you come over? I want Fernando to hear what we have to say." The panic in his expression was all the confirmation I needed. I had won. That very night, Fernando packed his things and left. Not without trying to threaten me one last time, saying I would regret this. But I wasn't afraid anymore. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. And the best part? I made sure he didn't walk away unpunished. The next day, I filed a lawsuit against him. Every piece of evidence was there, proving how he had tried to manipulate me into giving up my house. The result? Fernando didn't just lose the house, he lost everything. The last I heard of him, Lorena had dumped him, and he was living in a tiny apartment, broke and unemployed. Me? I moved on. I kept living in the house that was rightfully mine, raising my children in peace. Fernando thought I was weak, but he learned the hard way that a betrayed woman is never a defeated woman. She's a woman who will go to the very end to get her revenge. I was never a vengeful person. I was never someone who wanted to expose others, play dirty, or ruin someone's life. But Fernando wasn't just anyone. He wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a scammer, a manipulator who tried to rob me, not just financially, but emotionally. He wanted to strip me of everything, take my house, my stability, my children's security. He wanted to discard me like trash while he started a new life with Lorena in the house that I bought, with the money that I worked for. But what he never imagined was that I was no longer the woman he thought he could deceive. After that night when I kicked him out of the house, I didn't stop there. Watching him leave with his head down, throwing out empty threats while carrying his suitcases, wasn't enough. I knew that Fernando had gotten away with too much in life, because no one had ever exposed him for what he really was. That was about to change. I spent the next few days organizing everything. I already had the proof, all the recordings, the messages, the call logs. Everything that showed his disgusting plan to trick me into transferring the house to his name. But I didn't just want to ensure my legal victory. I wanted the world to know exactly what kind of man he was. I started by posting a detailed story on social media, sharing everything without filters. I was meticulous, explaining step by step how Fernando had pressured me to transfer the house, how I discovered Lorena, and how they had planned to leave me with nothing. But what truly shocked people was the recording. Yes, I posted the full audio where he incriminated himself. The reaction was immediate. Friends, acquaintances, family, everyone saw it. His marketing colleagues, the clients he had tried to win over with his fake charm, even the friends who probably thought he was just an unhappy husband trying to move on. But now, they all knew he wasn't just a cheater. He was a romance scammer. Messages started pouring in. Women sharing that they had been through the same thing. People saying they had heard similar stories, but had never seen someone brave enough to expose it all. Some of his friends tried to defend him at first, saying the relationship was already over, or maybe this was just a misunderstanding, but I had a response for every single one of them. If it was over, why did he try to steal my house? If he just wanted to move on, why didn't he file for divorce instead of planning a financial scam? Silence. Little by little, his defenders disappeared. Even his closest friends started distancing themselves. Because no one wants to be associated with someone publicly exposed as a con artist. But the best part was yet to come. After my post went viral, people started reaching out to me privately. Among them was a woman named Vanessa. And Vanessa had something very interesting to tell me. I wasn't Fernando's first victim. She sent me screenshots of old conversations, showing how Fernando had done the same thing to her years ago. The same story. He gained her trust, convinced her to share assets, manipulated her into signing contracts without reading the fine print. The difference was that back then, she was younger, didn't have kids, and didn't have the legal support I had with Amanda. He left her with a huge debt and disappeared. I knew this couldn't stop there. With Amanda's help, I filed a lawsuit for financial fraud. The judge not only invalidated any attempt by Fernando to claim my house, but he also ruled that Fernando had to pay a hefty fine for emotional damages and his attempt at fraud. Since he was already financially ruined after Lorena dumped him, he had to sell the little he had left to cover the court costs. Today, life has moved on for everyone except Fernando. I still live in my house, raising my children. Mateus and Bianca are my top priority, and now that I'm free from that man, I can fully focus on them. My career as a doctor continues to thrive, and today I am a respected professional at my hospital. Financially, I have never been in a better place. But more importantly, I am at peace. Lorena? She disappeared. She quickly realized that Fernando had nothing to offer beyond empty promises. The moment he started having financial troubles, she dumped him just like he had planned to discard me. Ironic, isn't it? And Fernando? Well, now he's living off favors in some old acquaintance's house. No money, no friends, no job. Marketing is a reputation-based business, and after the scandal, no company wants to be associated with him. He became a joke. He became an example of what not to be. And me? I regret nothing. If I had stayed silent, he would have done the same thing to another woman. He would have kept moving forward, deceiving more and more people. But now, he has nowhere left to run. His name is ruined, his reputation is destroyed, and he is finally facing the consequences of his actions. So, if anyone asks me if I feel guilty, the answer is simple. No. I feel free.